Hey friends, in today's video I'm going to show you how you can have smoothly animated code blocks using Shiki magic move. So on the right we have a simple view example, and when I press toggle examples it should smoothly animate. How beautiful is that, friends? And if you want, you can also have line numbers, of course. And under the hood this uses the Shiki.js syntax highlighter. Alright, so here is the library in question. As it says, Shiki magic move is a low-level library for animating code blocks and uses Shiki as the syntax highlighter. But it also says that you usually want to use it with a high-level integration, or one of these framework wrappers for Vue, React, or Svelte. So for example, if we look at the Svelte example here, we can see that it's really simple. We can just import Shiki, Shiki magic move, and then we can import the styles here. We create the Shiki highlighter, then we have our code, and then we can use this component where we pass props like the language, theme, including the options. But in this video, I actually want to show you how you can use Shiki magic move framework agnostically. And it's really simple to set up. The only packages that you're going to need is Shiki magic move and Shiki itself, as you can see right here. But if you're interested, I'm going to link to a video where I show you how you can use the Svelte wrapper for Shiki magic move. But in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can set up a framework agnostic solution using TypeScript. But of course, if you don't care about types, you can just use JavaScript. Alright friends, so I created a simple Vue TypeScript project. And if you want to look at this code later, I'm going to put the link to the blog post in the description. As you can see, we're just importing create highlighter from Shiki and some types. And then from Shiki magic move /core, we're importing code to key tokens and create magic move machine. This is basically going to diff the code and find the differences in it. And then later, we need to construct the DOM and do the transitions using magic move renderer from Shiki magic move /renderer. And here's the most important part. We need to copy paste some styles from Shiki magic move. So if I open the style CSS, here I have some basic styles. You can ignore this, it's not important. The only important part is this. So here I added some font family and font size. You can ignore this, but you need to have all of these styles here. And then you need some other styles for Shiki magic move, such for the item, the transitions, and etc. And you can find all of these styles in the Shiki magic move repository. So don't forget the crucial step, otherwise your animations aren't going to work. Alright, so back in our code, I just have some types here where I created an interface. It's really not important. So here's the important part. First, we need to create the Shiki highlighter. So we can say await create highlighter, and then we can pass the language that you want. So for example, we can use the shorthand TypeScript and you get great auto completion. So this is super simple. So you can have TypeScript, JavaScript, well, whatever you need. So you can set this up here and that's basically it. And of course, here's also a cool part. So this uses the actual VS Code theme grammar. So you get actual great looking themes when using syntax highlighting, such as my favorite theme, Poimandres. But of course, there are other favorites like Capuchin, so you can have Capuchin if you want, or you can even create your own custom themes if you read the Shiki.js documentation. But yeah, that's pretty cool in my opinion. Alright, so here is where we're going to create the magic move class. So we're going to have these two fields, machine and the renderer. So as I already said, the machine diffs the code, and the renderer creates the DOM elements and transitions. So here we have the constructor, so we're going to pass the target, highlighter, the initial code it should render, and the magic move options. So we're just going to destructure these options here, such as language, theme, and line numbers, which are going to set by default to false. But of course, you can do this however you want. If you don't like classes, you can use a function. Alright, so here we're going to create and add the pre-element. The only important thing is that this class name is Shiki magic move container because we're targeting it in the styles. And then we're going to append the pre-element to the target, and that's basically it. Alright, so here's where we create the Shiki magic move machine. So we just need to say this machine equals create magic move machine, and then we get this callback with the code, so we have to use this function code to keys tokens. So this is going to turn our string into tokens. And of course, we need to pass the highlighter, code, language, and the theme, and if you want, the line numbers, alongside the options for create magic move machine. Alright, so now that we created the machine, we can create the renderer. So we can say new magic move renderer, we're going to pass the pre-code, and then we're going to also pass the options. And here is where we're going to do the initial render. So we just need to call on the machine, this machine.commit. We're going to pass the initial code, and then we can say this renderer, render, and we're going to say this.machine.current. And the only thing left on the class is this update function. So this is how we're going to update the code. So we're just going to pass the code as a string, and we're going to do the same thing, this machine.commit code, and then we're going to say this renderer.render, this machine.current. Alright, so we're going to query the target element, which in this case is app, and then here I have some steps with before and after. and we need to push this code to the edge because of formatting, so I'm also using trim here. But of course, if you want, you can create a helper function that's going to help you with indenting the code. So here's an example how I do that in Anymotion using this indent function. It's just a simple function that removes any unnecessary tabs. Alright, so now we can create our new magic move machine, where we pass in the target, highlighter, and the steps before for the initial render. So here we have a couple of options. So again, we can pass the language instead of TypeScript, we can use the shorthand TES. For the theme, I'm going to use poem address, line numbers by default, and we can also pass the duration. And we're going to look at some of these options in a bit. But the only thing that we're doing is we're defining this toggle variable, and then we have an event listener on the document, so when we click on it, we're just going to toggle the code. So we're going to show the steps before or steps after using our code.update method. And then we're just going to change toggle. So here we have our beautiful code example, and now we should smoothly animate. How beautiful is that, friends? Alright, so let me show you some other options. So you can see, for example, when we transition this code, it happens all at the same time. But what if we want a nice stagger? So let me show you how that looks like. Alright, so I'm going to go here, I'm going to enable stagger. And if you want, we can also hide the container styles so you can match your theme better. So let's do that. And then we can also specify a custom easing. So we can use this linear easing. And if you're wondering where I got that from, you can visit this linear generator and you can just copy and paste the code yourself. Alright, so now our example looks like this. Alright, so we're going to see that it has more character, and because of the stagger, the transition doesn't happen instantly. So let me show you this again. That's really fun. Alright, that's it. I hope all of this made sense, but if you need more information, you can watch my other video. And in the next video, we're going to dive deep into how Shiki Magic Move itself works. So thank you for watching and catch you in the next one. Peace.